So they made him look like he did in the Clone Wars cartoon. Like for a while between the two prequel movies, he had shorter hair and he was funny, and that's the Anakin we got in this episode, and they did a great job with the effects.
Okay.
As opposed to the one problem I have with this episode's movie, where they did a bad job, in my opinion, with the de-aging effects.
Okay. And we were talking about Ahsoka, the show. That's what you're talking about right now. And Hayden Christensen is in there.
We were, but now I'm transitioning to segue to the movie Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Yeah. Which, again, like, I didn't think it was horrible de-aging. They kept it so dark and murky. You know?
It took me out of it. Like, it felt like a cutscene of a video game.
Well, see, that's how I feel everyone looks. And it doesn't mean it's always good now. If you liked the way they did it in that one...
Oh, no.
But the next thing you see, it still might be Luke Skywalker in The Mandalorian, which I didn't think looked great, you know?
And I mean, they famously, after they put Luke out there, a YouTuber went and he made that scene look better. And then Lucasfilm hired him. Yeah.
It's pretty good.
You know, and it's just... It's crazy. What did they say? They spent almost $300 million on production for in this movie, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Mm-hmm. You know, movies take too much money to make is the big problem. And I'd like to think it's all because they're trying to pay people well. But when people make movies, like this is before all the post-production, we need a hammer. Go get us a hammer. So this PA goes to a store and says, well, I'm working for Disney. That's a nice hammer. So he just grabs that hammer. It doesn't matter that it's $30. Well, why would I make them spend $30 when this $5 one is perfectly good? That is the problem with the movie industry. We don't need the most expensive thing. This thing will work. And I think they would drastically reduce prices if they would have a little more, I don't know, just a little more thought about how much they're spending on things when this other thing is just as good.
This is also the problem with government spending. And it's true across all business. As a salesman, I got excited every single time I was dealing with a business, as opposed to a consumer, because a consumer cares how much money they're spending. They don't have all the money in the world, and they want the best value. When you're dealing with a business, it's not their money, and they don't care, and they just buy whatever you tell them because they trust you. To be clear, I always tried to do the best for businesses, but I always knew I could sell them tons of stuff.
Yeah, you knew you could.
The government is like that. They ask for bids on projects, and all these businesses that work with them know that it's the government and they can get away with it, so they inflate the price to make a bunch of money.
And that's why the movie made like $300 million, and it's a bomb. But I'm like, that's a shitload of money to make. I'd be happy to make that much on a movie.
It's crazy that it made so much money and it's a bomb. Just to be clear, though, and there is a distinction here when we talk about wasteful government spending. I think that a lot of the programs that the government have, this is an ideological line. When you hear a more conservative person say wasteful government spending, they think programs shouldn't exist. On my side, where I'm much more central, down the middle of the road kind of a guy, I think that the programs should exist, but we need to spend the money better.
Well, generally, programs need to be funded. Like, you don't want to fund Band-Aids for problems. You want to fund programs that will change from the ground up systemic problems, and then that will alleviate the need for more money on societal problems, right? I mean, but they don't think of it that way.
And with that, we welcome you to Government Talk, our weekly podcast about government spending and fiscal responsibility.
Yeah. Our guest is CEO AFL President Bert Schneider. He wants to talk to us about collective bargaining.
Bert, what are your thoughts? Oh, but before we get into that segment...
AFL-CIO. I think I said it wrong. I think I said it backwards, but I'm still proud of myself for actually getting that acronym correct. But you know what? No one's ever going to know it, because now that I said it again correctly, I'm going to snip that out, and I'm going to put that where I originally said it. And nobody will ever know. As long as I take this part out where I'm explaining it. And also this part where I've now just explained that I'm explaining it.
Yeah, well, thanks, Aaron. Now we get back to our regular broadcast.
Can't do this anymore. I saw Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I did enjoy it. Did you watch that?
I did see that movie.
I thought it was a little...
I can't stop talking like this.
I thought it was a little sad. with all the animal stuff going on. But it was a nice, like, animal rights kind of film. Like, I didn't know they'd slide that into this series of movies.
It was very unexpected, yeah.
Yeah.
But it was also great. It was the best Marvel movie in a while.
It certainly was, and you know why? It's because it was funny, and they don't take things too seriously, and they are not busy world building.
The DC bombs. We go back to The Flash, which was, in my opinion, amazing and awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd go as far to like raise it up to say it was a great movie, but it was an enjoyable viewing experience as far as superhero movies go. That's probably as generous as I could be.
I think The Flash and Indiana Jones, Dial of Destiny, or Dodd. We're just going to call it Dodd. I think Dodd was in the same ballpark as The Flash, because they're just really solid, self-contained movies that tell a story and you know what's happening and then the story gets over. I don't know if it's flat filmmaking or what, but there does seem like there was just a small emotional element missing from both of these movies. I think it was a great story and it was really well self-contained.
I did want to talk about something. So you remember we talked a while ago about the thing I coined where it was like what makes an A-lister? You know, it was like you got to be known for being funny, attractive, and or charismatic. Not every A-lister has all three, but every A-lister at least has to have two. That's my thing.
I think you invented this for Ryan Gosling.
I did, because Ryan Gosling is a good supporting character. But it always surprises me when people make him the leads of movies, because I'm like, he does not have two of those three things. He's a fake A-lister, where he's tricked the movie-going public into believing he has two of those three qualities that it takes to be an A-lister. But he doesn't. He only has one, and he's good-looking, and that is it. But he's not known for being funny, though he can be funny. And he's not known for being charismatic, although he fools people into thinking being good-looking and wooden is charismatic. So when he's the lead of Blade Runner 2049... I'm like, I get it, because you're playing an android with no emotional feelings, and that is kind of who Ryan Gosling is in real life. But at the same time, I'm just like, why would you ever hire this guy to be the lead? He is not a lead actor. He is fooling everyone. But when you put him in Barbie and he's playing against Margot Robbie, I'm like, yeah, sure, that works. That's fine, you know? Or he's in like a buddy comedy with like Russell Crowe, whatever that one was. I was like, yeah, nice, there you go. That's fine too, you know? All right, so my point is, I was having a little trouble with that because it's kind of foolproof, the three qualities, until I was thinking about Keanu Reeves. And I was like, oh shit, he's not known to be funny. He's good looking. But would you call what he does charismatic?
Yeah.
And then I was like, I wouldn't, but I came up with this little caveat. If you're known to be an action movie star, then that helps you transcend the skills you may lack in those three. Think about it. This is why Arnold Schwarzenegger was an A-lister. This is why Sylvester Stallone is an A-lister. Because they're not known, they're not generally like attractive, although they are good looking in their own way. And they're not generally charismatic, although they can lead these movies. And they're not generally known to be funny, although they can be funny in these movies. But if you have the action movie skill, I think that helps you transcend what you may be lacking in some of those characteristics. And therefore, it allows you to be an A-lister. And that's what Keanu did with The Matrix. And now, of course, with John Wick.
Interesting.
That was my spiel.
Yeah. Welcome to Aaron and Justin Talk Sequels, a podcast about movies. This is a fill-in episode where we've already covered sequels and they add another sequel to a sequel. And so we're covering the newest sequel, and the last sequel in this case, of Indiana Jones. And this one is called Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. So, Indiana Jones is a doctor of archaeology. Is that a thing?
It is, because they've made me believe it is.
Is he a con man?
No, he's not a con man. He's a grave robber.
He's definitely a grave robber.
But you know what? They call him a grave robber in this movie, and I think that's pretty fun.
They called him a grave robber in Return and Temple, didn't they?
No, I don't think they called him a grave robber to his face, but they actually use the word grave robber in this movie.
I think his enemies called him a grave robber.
Yeah, I don't think so. We just watched Temple. My son wanted to watch it, and he's only 6, and so I was like, oh, this will be fun. Because it's pretty, It's hardcore for kids, tearing out hearts and burning bodies and stuff.
Yeah.
He closed his eyes during that part.
PG-13 stuff.
I was watching Batman the other day.
Yeah.
And, the guy who plays Eckhart, the shitty police officer who's like kind of supposed to be Bullock, but they don't have Bullock for some reason. They just have Eckhart.
Right.
I was like, that guy's great. I love that guy. That character actor is fantastic. Where has he been? So I was looking him up. He's in Raiders of the Lost Ark. He's one of the government guys that comes and see Indy off the top.
Oh, it's not Porkins, is it?
And is Porkins the guy from Star Wars?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's the fat X-Wing fighter in one of the Star Wars films. Maybe the original one. I forget which one.
Yeah, it was the original because he dies.
So I'm like, of course I've seen that guy before many times. But he sounds so different as Eckhart. He's got this really gravelly voice, and he just seems like a blob of shit actor. And alcohol. Yeah, he's amazing. So anyway, he was great. But back to the movie. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. So how long has this been since the last Indiana Jones? When did that come out? Like 2009?
Or 2007?
2007, yeah, I think you're right. Because I don't think it was an exact 20 years since Last Crusade, which was 89.
Oh, 2008.
2008. More time has passed between Kingdom and this one than it felt between Last Crusade and Kingdom. Because there's just something about Indy was almost the same character still, or they tried to keep him similar between those two. But this one now they've transitioned to the 60s and they've said, look how fucking old this guy is and out of touch. Like they go out of their way to make this one seem like he's really out of place.
Let's just take a quick step back. This is directed by America's favorite B-list director.
I don't know. I mean, he's like a working director, but you happen to know his name.
Yeah.
It's James Mangold. You know who he reminds me of? He reminds me of Joe Johnston.
No.
And it might be because of the allusions to Spielberg, and he's taken over a Spielberg movie the way Joe Johnston took over a Spielberg, that kind of thing.
Oh, you said Joe Johnston.
Yeah, Joe Johnston.
I thought you said Ryan Johnston.
Who's Ryan Johnston?
Why don't you ask your mom? I don't know.
There's Ryan Johnson.
Maybe that's what I was thinking.
But no, there's not Johnston. Anyway, I do think Mangold is a little bit of a Joe Johnston, and I think that's a compliment. I don't mean that as a negative.
Yeah, Joe Johnston's good, and Mangold's good. And he's got a filmography that he started at the perfect time where we followed his career even though we didn't know who he was.
But he was a little bit after the 90s explosion of young filmmakers.
He was like 2 years later. Like he did this movie called Heavy.
I remember Heavy. It was about the heavy kid, right?
No idea. But I absolutely remember Copland. Mm-hmm. And I was excited about Copland. Stallone, Harvey Keitel, Ray Liotta, Robert De Niro. Like it was packed with everybody that mattered in the late 80s, early 90s. And then, this is the weird part about Mangold, is it's like he doesn't have a thing.
This is my point of saying he's like Joe Johnston.
Except he wrote and directed all of these things.
That's true.
And that's the weird part, because he then does Girl Interrupted.
Right. What he did for the old dudes in Copland, he then turns around and goes, for the young new girls, or maybe not new, because I mean, Winona Ryder had been around for a while, but at least for the young, sexy girls, I'm going to make a movie for them now. And I thought that was pretty impressive.
Great movie.
Yeah, it was good. We saw it in theaters.
Yeah. And then he does Kate and Leopold. And again, writer and director, he does a time travel romance.
That's the one with Hugh Jackman and Meg Ryan, right?
Yeah.
That's bizarre. That's weird.
And again, this guy's making movies like clockwork every 2 years.
Yeah.
95, 97, 99, 2001.
And he's writing all of these. I didn't know that.
Wrote everyone.
That's pretty
And
impressive.
then he directed and uncredited writer on Identity, the John Cusack bomb. I think it was a bomb.
Maybe he was uncredited after he realized it was a bomb.
This was it actually made good money. Huh. This was during the John Cusack Renaissance.
With like High Fidelity.
Yeah, and Grosse Point Blank. And then this movie came out and I was like, no thank you. But it made good money. Budget 28, box office 90. And that's probably why he continues working, because then he does Walk the Line.
And that was which now you get an Oscar. So now that's probably why we know him, because of Walk the Line.
And again, he wrote and directed it. And then he goes on to do 3:10 to Yuma, which he did not write.
I liked that movie. I thought it was pretty good.
He does Night and Day.
Night and Day was really good. If you haven't seen Night and Day, it was really funny. It's a good comedy cruise film.
I haven't seen it, and I love Tom Cruise, so that's the crazy part.
It's like a a riff on Cruise and his career as an action star.
And then he does The Wolverine. I think it was a just fine movie.
It was better than Wolverine, the Origins movie. So it was a step up from the first movie.
In the last 3 movies, he doesn't have an official writing credit. Wolverine, Night and Day, 3:10 to Yuma. Then he comes back to form and does Logan, which everybody loses their goddamn mind for.
A little bit too much, yeah.
A little bit too much, because it actually is a lot like Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Then he makes Ford versus Ferrari, which I haven't seen, but I heard is great.
I haven't seen that either.
Nominated for Best Picture. And then he goes on to make Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. There's a common string throughout these movies. Not only are they all made by James Mangold, but he also is the kind of director that people like, and he works with the same people over and over and over. So the writers on Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, James Mangold guys, works on many of their past projects. The cinematographer is basically the same cinematographer that he's used for every single movie. The editor works with him nonstop. Like, this is up and down a James Mangold production, and he brought in all of his people for it.
I think he's probably a nice guy. He's a good boss. He gives direction well. He brings in projects on time and on budget. And that's why he continues to get work, you know? And he happens to be creative at the same time. So it's nice. But I just felt the allusion to Joe Johnston because he's just this director that can handle different kinds of movies. And he doesn't really have a look necessarily, you know? And that's how Johnston felt to me. Like, he did Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and then he does The Rocketeer, and then he does October Sky, and then he does Jurassic Park 3, and then he does Captain America, you know, like he's and The Wolfman, like they're very different movies, and yeah, he can handle them.
Yeah, dependable. Yeah.
Dependable.
So here's my next question setting up this movie. Phoebe Waller-Bridge. Phoebe Waller-Bridge. I only know her from Fleabag, and I never saw Fleabag. What are your thoughts on her?
I know her very well from Fleabag. We watched all of Fleabag, and she's super funny and raunchy. Holy shit. She's not really the kind of person I would have imagined would have been brought in for a tentpole movie, a family movie like Indiana Jones. It's funny to me to think that she's now this, with scripts, they, like Carrie Fisher, you know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're saying. Script actor.
Like, she worked on the new James Bond film, I believe. She added some stuff to that.
Talking about this cast, there is a blonde Nazi who's kind of a dick, isn't that what's his name from Harry Potter?
I don't know, it's not. But he is from Logan. He was the bad guy in Logan. Because, like you said, Mangold works with a lot of the same actors.
Boyd Holbrook is his name.
That's his name.
And he is in Logan as the bad guy. Oh my god, I didn't realize that he was Donald Pierce. So yeah, I was wrong. It's not the guy from Harry Potter.
The problem with that actor is that when he shows up, you know he's the bad guy. I don't know if that's a problem, actually. Maybe that's what he exactly wanted. He wanted you to know, because it's not like it's a I don't know. It's just like that's the only thing he does play. But whereas Mads Mikkelsen, you know he's a bad guy, but you don't know if he's going to be a sympathetic bad guy or not. And that's what his talent is as an actor, I think.
Who else do we have in this movie? John Rhys-Davies returns as Sala, who is now just a New York cab driver with his family. Mm-hmm. Pretty believable. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, because he says that Indy got him out of Morocco or wherever he was. He said he helped him out.
He was just a laborer, I think. We never saw like a skill from him, I don't think.
He just seemed to know people, and he helped Indy whenever he was in town. That was pretty much it.
Sounds like a cab driver to me.
Perfect. There you go.
The weirdest person in this movie is Antonio Banderas. I don't know why he's in this movie.
When I see Antonio Banderas, I don't always see Puss in Boots, but sometimes he does the role. And that is exactly what he does in this movie.
How long do you think he lasted? Maybe 10 minutes before he was killed?
He was there to die, that's for sure. No, you know who I thought it was going to be? The plane pilot from the very beginning of Raiders. You know what I mean?
Yes.
I thought that was going to be him. I'm like, is that him? And then I was like, oh, no, it's Antonio Banderas.
Do you know who else I love who belongs in this movie?
Karen Allen?
No, she's fine.
Shia LaBeouf?
She is criminally underused in this movie, but Toby Jones.
Reliable character actor, Toby Jones.
The most reliably weird-looking character actor. Do we have a weirder-looking character actor above him?
Steve Buscemi?
And Steve Buscemi counts.
I don't know, but I think Toby Jones is one of the ugliest character actors out there, but he lives it, like that's him, and we love him for it.
In this movie, we also have Shawnette Wilson playing the Agent Mason of the CIA.
She is so freaking useless in this movie.
Another role that had no point.
It had no point. Why did we need that? She was just there to be used by these bad guys who we all knew was bad guys. Why didn't she know was bad guys?
The decision to go with the afro to symbolize 1969 was a really lazy choice, but she did look pretty hot.
I was thinking the same thing. I think the afro would absolutely work if the clothes didn't look too costumey. If there's something about her outfit that made it look like she was going to a Halloween party.
It did look like a Halloween party, or like she was cast in shampoo.
Or hair or something like that.
Yeah. Anyway, her job, and this is a little over. God, maybe I'm going to start getting critical of this movie.
Well, we can get critical of all of these parts because I think this is what sunk the movie in a lot of people's minds is all of these extraneous things. Why'd you make that decision? And what was the point of that? Blah, blah, blah. But when you're talking about Harrison Ford and his adventure and you're just with him, then a lot of that is passable and we enjoyed it.
It's true. We start this movie with bad CGI. I hate it. De-aged Harrison Ford.
I thought they made it murky enough and dark enough and a little comical enough that it passed for me, but it did go on a little too long.
Where did they just use this really well? And it was Disney themselves.
Tron Legacy with Jeff Bridges.
I did not see
that was like 20 years ago.
They just de-aged somebody because they had the modern actor and it worked just fine. Samuel L. Jackson in Captain Marvel.
Yeah, it looked okay. It always looks okay.
See, that didn't pull me out of the movie. Like, Harrison's pulled me out of the movie.
I really can't say anything's looked great. I really can't. If you take all of the de-aging and put them all together, they all look good at times. But it's just a turn of the head in a certain way, or it's just a movement in a certain way, or it's their old voice. It just all of a sudden looks bad. But you know what? I think Sam Jackson, he's aged so well, and his voice is still similar to what it was when we first knew him in his 40s. I think that helps to pass. Whereas Harrison Ford, he sounds old, and they can't seem to do anything about the voice.
And one difference, and this is the same with Scorsese's last movie. What was it called?
The Irishman.
The Irishman. They de-aged old Robert De Niro. They didn't try to match de-aged old Robert De Niro to young Robert De Niro. They just made him into a younger version of the old man, if that makes sense. Like if you took a picture of him in Raging Bull and a picture of him in The Irishman de-aged, they're not going to look the same because that's not what they were doing. The same with Samuel L. Jackson. Like the de-aged Samuel L. Jackson in Captain Marvel does not look like Samuel L. Jackson from Pulp Fiction.
Yeah.
He looks like a de-aged old man. And here they couldn't do that because we know what Harrison Ford looks de-aged at, like in Indiana Jones. It would just be weird. So they probably could have made it look less cartoony, but it would have looked less like actual Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
If that
it makes sense.
Makes sense.
Why not just recast him like with somebody who sort of looks like him? My problem with The Irishman was that they de-aged the face, but they have old man bodies and they move like old men.
Yeah. The limitations are still there. So they make this movie and starts with a flashback of a cartoon Indiana Jones. Indy and another archaeologist who's not an adventurer, just an archaeologist, are trying to steal the sword that stabbed Jesus while he was hanging on the cross because it's supposed to have some kind of magic power that Hitler wanted. It's just a wasted adventure. It turns out that it was a fake. What's his name? Mads Mikkelsen. His name's Jürgen Voller.
He's a Nazi archaeologist.
He discovers part of a dial of destiny built by Archimedes, and he's much more excited about this, but that's not the mission. Indy and the archaeologist guy steal it from him and they escape.
We all know about the Ark of the Covenant because it's in the Bible and the cup of Christ and Jesus and stuff like that. I don't know anybody who knows really hardly anything about Archimedes.
And that's, I think, exactly why they picked him, because all I know is the name. And I think everybody recognizes the name without knowing who he is.
Yeah, we all know the name, but I couldn't tell you a goddamn thing about him. Anything you told me he did, I'd be like, well, didn't Da Vinci do that?
Yeah, it makes it a lot more believable.
Wasn't he just a philosopher? Kind of like a Plato thing, kind of like Socrates. Wasn't he just a guy that just wrote things and thought of things? Did he actually build things?
It's kind of the same with Da Vinci. If you had told me that Da Vinci made the Dial of Destiny, I'd believe it. If you tell me Archimedes makes it, I'll believe it, because I don't know enough to know better.
That's a good point, yeah. But my point is that I think it sinks it because we don't know enough about it. Like, it's not cool enough to us because we don't know anything about him.
This movie is good overall, but yeah, the difference between good and great is exactly what we're talking about. These little tiny details that we're fine with that could have been something just a little better or punchier.
But maybe that's what archaeologists care about. Maybe they don't care about recent history. Maybe they only care about shit that happened 3,000 years ago or whatever. Like, so if Indy, for some reason, would go back in time and find himself in the middle of a Roman battle with Archimedes, maybe that's his Gettysburg. You know, maybe that's his World War II. That's what archaeologists care about. They don't care about recent history. I don't know. Just a guess.
Kinda.
Yeah.
So this happens, and then we're flash forward to present time, 1969 New York. Man has just landed on the moon. Everybody's happy. And Indiana Jones is an old, washed up nobody who works at a small college and is depressed and hates his life, and would probably, if nothing else had happened that day, would probably have gone home, drawn himself a bath, and slit his wrists wide open.
I just felt like he was more bored than depressed. I just felt like he was bored. And he didn't understand where he was and why he was there in a philosophical sense.
I think it was he had lost himself,
But he certainly wasn't pining, like, for his past. You kids don't know anything about me. I did this, and I discovered this, and I did it. Like, it didn't matter. Like, none of that mattered to him. So he just seemed kind of like this bored old dude who didn't really even have any pride in what he did.
He was going to be putting those wrists open. He loved his life, and he knew that his life was over.
Yeah. So at this point, we have to get to course correction, because the last movie was not everybody's favorite critically, even though I think it did money, right? So how are we going to course correct? How is James Mangold course correcting this? Well, he doesn't want to change things. He wants to respect what Spielberg and Lucas had done, but he knew that he could correct problems.
Yeah.
So Indy got married to Marion.
Yeah.
But that marriage ended when his son went off to, I presume, the Vietnam War and was killed.
Yeah.
And as often happens when a child dies, couples can drift apart. And I think he was using that kind of trope to correct the fact that nobody wanted to see Shia LaBeouf in this movie.
Or in any movie ever again.
Or having
the best
Indy
way to
married.
correct problems.
Because if you have Indy married, it's difficult for him to leave to go on an adventure. It just is. Because he's supposed to put all that behind him. And we would have had a whole scene where he was just like, Marion, you got to come with. Or you just got to give me some time to do this. And we wouldn't see that. Anyways, you were saying the best way to correct a problem.
Just, kids, if you ever want to remember anything from Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, it's that the best way to solve your problems are by killing them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
And I hate that.
That's what you do.
I think you have to... I think he respected the previous sequel, but I also think you don't destroy the happy ending, right? Aren't we always talking about that? You don't destroy the happy ending of the one previous to think that your sequel is superior and it deserves it because it's going to be amazing. Because it didn't happen in Alien 3.
It's true.
It didn't happen with Terminator Dark Fate. These are lesser movies than the ones before. And this certainly didn't happen with Dial of Destiny.
Yeah, so Mutt's dead. It's great. It hurt their marriage.
Jesus.
Because Indiana Jones is a bastard who can't communicate.
Mm-hmm.
And when you handle everything the same way, it might hurt your partner's feelings when it's her child and your child that you're supposed to care about.
Yeah.
But again, the point is that Indiana Jones is a bastard.
And he's a bachelor.
Who has always done
That's the point.
Whatever he wanted.
He's on his own. So if somebody comes with him with an adventure, he can unwillingly go along with it. And that's what he does.
So the plot of this movie, just so we're on the same page, is that Phoebe Waller-Bridge,
Who's his unknown goddaughter that we've never seen before, but now is...
Helena Shaw, is an archaeologist, grave robber who sells the shit for money. She knows that her godfather is an aging has-been, goes to see him so she can rip him off.
Well, see, this is the thing you don't know, though, because they play this
I know, but
well.
it's fun that that's what happened.
Right. They play it well where you think she's just another indie. Like, she cares about history and all this stuff, and she wants to put stuff in a museum.
Well, she's essentially indie in just before Temple of Doom. What I think they're trying to do is, like, this is exactly how he used to act. And we're seeing her change and the adventure that makes her a good person.
Yeah, that's possible. But it's just that in Temple of Doom, when he goes to that village and he just wants to go home, he quickly realizes, even though Willie is complaining, like, we got to get out of here, he quickly realizes that, no, we have to help these people. So I don't think it was, like, too much of a change. I think that's the way he's been.
The movie starts with him trading an ancient artifact for a diamond.
Right. But I don't know the significance of the diamond. Maybe the diamond's more of an artifact than the thing. You know?
You think the ancient remains of a Chinese emperor are worth more than a diamond? No, he was there to make money.
Maybe it was Archimedes' diamond.
And just to double down on this being Phoebe Waller-Bridge's Temple of Doom, what did they give her? An underage foreign child.
Yeah. You know what? I'm with you now. I agree. So he subverts it in that she's not going for this shit though.
Yeah, she's doing elder abuse, stealing artifacts, going off to stop them, and she just happened to involve Indiana fucking Jones. She has her own fucking short round named what is his name?
I don't remember. I didn't really care for him. I don't know. He was alright.
No,
he's kind of annoying.
He wasn't
annoying. I don't know what the name is. I thought he was just kind of, I don't know. He's kind of a dick.
His name's Teddy Kumar.
Teddy.
His name's Teddy. So between the flashback, Mads Mikkelsen's Jurgen, we famously took Nazi scientists, let them be Americans as long as they helped work on our shit.
Yeah, like
and they
Werner
say like the nuclear
von Braun was the rocket scientist that we allowed to come from Nazi Germany.
Yeah, and so Mads Mikkelsen is playing a riff on this, where he's now known as Dr. Schmidt. He helped America get to the moon, and he thinks he's hot shit. The CIA is letting him be a little bit shitty in his search for this dial of destiny because of everything he's done.
The Toby Jones, as we were talking about, that's Helena's father, and her father has half the dial.
And he's obsessed with it for the next 20 years. And
kind of like Indy's father was obsessed with the cup.
Yeah, it's weird. But he dies. He dead.
But not before he gives the half to Indy. I think Indy knew what it did to his father and his relationship, and he was afraid for Helena's relationship with her father because it was already going downhill. So he wanted to remove the problem. So he graciously accepted, or took, whatever, that destiny so Toby Jones could go be a dad again. So then she realizes that Indy probably has it, so that's why she goes. She takes it from him. And now she wants to go sell it. So Indy's just like, why does he care so much to go after it, though?
I think he is initially just concerned about her.
Oh, right, because they get like shot at, and there's people after her. So he realizes that, okay, well, somebody's after her now. I gotta get into action. I gotta get my fedora.
And he's framed for murder.
Oh, that's right. Because at the school he's working at, the CIA agent is helping the Nazis, the neo-Nazis, kill people. And she's like, "Why, you can't do that, but I'll keep working with you for some reason."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not great.
And now it just seemed implausible to me that he would be framed for this. Like, that's who the police is going to think killed them? Harrison Ford, like an 80-year-old archaeology professor? This is the years before people going crazy in a workplace and shooting people.
Yeah. Well, he should be like on some kind of like government whitelist where it's like, oh, it's Indiana Jones. We should just expect this.
Exactly. And what the government already knows about how he's helped in the past. I don't think he did this. I don't know. It seems, I don't know.
I agree. But the whole world has forgotten him and it's left him behind. So he has Sala smuggle him out of the country, where he goes after the dial because Helena Shaw, she's got it up for auction, and Mads Mikkelsen shows up to buy it, and she's just trying to get it for the most money. Here's the thing real quick though about Mads Mikkelsen.
Yeah.
he's a great villain in that he's not that smart. Like, he's a scientist. I don't know how to describe him in this movie because he just makes a lot of mistakes and he's kind of a lot of shoulder shrugging and continues.
I think his ego makes him feel like he's smarter than he actually is.
Yeah.
Or he knows rocket science and he thinks that allows him to know everything. But he doesn't know shit about this Dial of Destiny.
He thinks he's hot shit for no good reason.
For one good reason, but it doesn't translate to everything else.
Yes, he is a great rocket scientist.
But he's also been obsessed with this Dial of Destiny thing since the Nazis were in power, so maybe that's why it's a passion for him. But it's funny that he, after all this time, he still doesn't understand it.
Yeah, it's only a passion for him because he thinks he's smarter than everyone else.
It's like Indy at the beginning of Last Crusade, when he's a young boy, and he gets that cross from those grave robbers because he wants it in a museum, and then he's got to lose it. But then he doesn't let it go, so when he's older, he finally finds it and gets it back for... for Mads Mikkelsen's character, where he had this Dial of Destiny and somebody took it from him and he's got to get it back. So it's been this lifelong quest for him to just get that fucking piece back. Now, does he have the other piece?
No.
Where is the other piece? I don't even remember.
It's under the Mediterranean Sea in the boat.
Oh,
no.
in the boat.
No, it's in Archimedes' grave. That's where it is.
Yes.
And somehow Archimedes made a thing that points to his grave? That feels like a plot hole.
I forgot all about this, but that doesn't feel like a plot hole as much as it feels like a contrivance for Indiana Jones film. Like, you have to have this Rube Goldberg sort of go point A to point B to C to D, and these impossible mechanical things that are made by Aztecs 3,000 years ago. You know, that would be of way more interest to archaeologists than the actual gold idol at the end of the obstacle course.
I know. Just imagine the first movie and the trap comes out and he's just like, Jesus Christ, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And he just gets down and he spends hours there.
Or even in The Last Crusade, when he has to go through the things in order to save his dad, like when he has to like kneel and then dive over those spinning blades and then they stop, he'd be like, hold on a second.
Dad, how are you? I need to look at this.
This is incredible. It's a saw blades, but like 2,000 years before they ever even made anything with metal. It's incredible. You gotta come look at this.
And then we see Sean Connery die.
No, he like Sala helps him hobble over there. They look at it together, and he's bleeding out. Can you just get the cup, please? I'm gonna die.
I wonder if they have gears back. There has to be gears. Oh, goddamn.
Yep.
Anyway, there's one thing about this movie that is remarkable is that it is action scene after action scene after action scene after action scene.
Yeah, it's a little too much.
There's almost no breathers. Like, they're very rare.
When they're in those little carts driving around, it goes on for like 10 minutes more than it should. I got a little bored.
And this was just a car chase to try and get the dial back. It kind of changes hands between Indy, Helena, and Mads Mikkelsen. Eventually, I don't remember who got it. I think...
I don't remember.
It almost doesn't matter.
It doesn't. Somehow they end up on the boat with Antonio Banderas because they have to find another clue, right?
Together, they figure out that there's a statue that was with half of the thing that will point to where the other half of the thing is, or something like that.
And also Mangold, like, we haven't seen Indy in a diving suit underwater yet, so let's put that in the movie.
And they try to build tension in this scene by saying that you can only be underwater for this amount of time
before you get the bends.
And it doesn't end up really mattering at all.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter.
And Antonio Banderas is Indy's old friend who's a diver, and he helps them, and then he dies.
It's kind of like a Mangold trope, kind of like from Logan when Eric LaSalle is the helpful farmer that helps him out, and then he ends up dying because he knew he was going to die. At some point, Indy gets shot, and I don't remember where. Yeah, I don't.
Because it's kind of merged. So anyway, they find the other piece.
It's usually in the shoulder. if you want to survive a movie shot.
That's when he gets shot, is when they have found the other piece. And
Okay.
Mads has the whole thing. He takes Indiana Jones onto the plane, and they leave Phoebe and her short round behind. They figure out the whole point of this device is to travel in time. That there's cracks in time. The device finds the crack, and if you know where the crack is, you might be able to travel through it.
And Archimedes figured this out.
Somehow.
Isn't that incredible? Like, he knew there was a tear in space, and so he devised basically a clock / compass to tell you where and when you can discover it. Is that it?
And the funny thing is it's almost a little believable, just because math really can tell you so much.
Exactly. All of that to me was believable. The thing that wasn't believable was that you could use it in a way that you could control it. So Mads believed he could get to exactly where he wanted to get to. That was far-fetched to me, because I'm like, how is that dial telling you what to do in order to get where you want? It seems like it's just telling you where to find a tear, and if you go through it, who knows where you'd end up.
Right.
Is it all about altitude? Depends on where you go into it, how fast you go into it, at what time of day you went into it. I don't know. They didn't really get into any of that. So
they kind of suggest that.
Do they?
Because Indy's all like, he didn't account for continental drift.
Right, because he's saying
whatever the fuck that means.
The tear moves like weather is what it felt like he was saying, because the continental drift would have pushed the tear.
Well, the land masses, you see. Yeah.
But see, I think Indy's wrong about that. And I think Mads is wrong that he can control it. I think the fact that Archimedes made a dial that predicts it is that he made a dial that predicts exactly the one he found, exactly where he is in his time. So to me, it makes perfect sense. If you go through it, you end up exactly where Archimedes found it. That's the only time travel possible.
That's what Wikipedia said, and I didn't really agree. Like, I didn't get that from the movie.
I didn't get it from the movie either. I only got it now that I think about watching the movie. And I'm like, oh, they ended up where he was. Well, that makes sense. Where else would they end up?
The whole thing was that he had to be in the air at exactly that time, because that's when it would appear. Like, it wasn't just up there hanging out. Like, it was... Yeah. They had to be on schedule.
Well, why would it conveniently appear exactly when they needed it to?
Well, like the dial told him?
I just think it should just be there. I think that would make more sense.
Yeah, anyway,
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, this is an Indiana Jones movie. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. All that mattered is that it seemed a little far-fetched, even for Indiana Jones, but then you think to yourself, okay, Raiders, power of God. Temple, voodoo. Last Crusade, power of God again. Kingdom of Crystal Skulls, aliens, or as Spielberg would call it, interdimensional beings. This new one, time travel. Sure, it can happen. Let's do it. Let's just do time travel. It hasn't been done before in an Indiana Jones movie. I'm cool with it. Let's do it.
They end up in 212 BC. What? 2000... Well, I could actually do it.
I guess it was like 2,200 years ago, right? Yeah.
And 35 years ago.
Okay. Yeah. And Indy immediately knows what battle of the Romans it is.
Yeah, against
so that's cool for them.
Syracuse. And he's all excited.
Yeah.
Hey, I guess they stopped Mads Mikkelsen by crashing the plane.
We didn't even talk about this. What did he want it for? He wanted to use it to go back in time to stop Hitler.
Oh my God, the stupidest thing.
Because he felt that Hitler did it wrong, and that's why he lost. So he's going to do it right or something? Or he's going to tell Hitler to do something different? I'm not really sure.
He wants to go back in time, kill Hitler, and take over the Third Reich and conquer the world. Because he's such a know-it-all, he thinks he could have done it better.
Right, he can do that. Okay. Or if he knows what he knows now, maybe he could go back and develop the nuclear bomb for...
Well, exactly.
Nazi Germany before the Americans do. That would definitely
He also is part of his plan as being a rocket scientist and finishing the rockets for Germany, but as the leader.
So it's a little subversion in that he's a Nazi, but he's not all about Hitler. Like, he thinks Hitler's an idiot and he can do it better. So that's a little different. So I was like, that's
all right. The Nazis lose. They crash.
But Indy said there's no way you can control this. You're only going back to where Archimedes wanted you to go back to. And that's when Mads Mikkelsen realizes, like, oh yeah, I'm stupid. I didn't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Although I did find the tear in space, and we did go back in time, so I'm not completely an idiot.
That sounded a little bit like Alan Alda.
But then they fly so fucking low that they get stabbed by all the Roman spears and all that shit. And they crash.
Because they think it's a dragon.
And the kid, the short round guy, Teddy, he followed them because he just realized he knew how to pilot a plane.
He was taking lessons.
So he followed them into it.
Earlier in the movie.
Yes. So that's their way home. So he had to go through it as well.
Here's a quick thing from earlier. They get the second piece of the dial from Archimedes' tomb. Wikipedia says that the wristwatch was on Archimedes' hand.
Yes.
But I feel like it was a different body. But whose wristwatch did he take?
Indy's. Indy gave him the wristwatch. Isn't that what it is?
No, like he gave it back to him. I could have swore.
I don't think so. I think that was Indy's wristwatch.
I was very confused about the wristwatch. I mean, that would make sense. So Indiana Jones meets Archimedes after the stupid Nazis lose. And Indiana's like, I want to stay.
Yeah, this is everything I've ever wanted as an archaeologist.
I want to die here.
I get to live the history I've always talked about and imagined, you know?
I just don't buy it. It's...
Well, he's so sad, as you said. He's just like, what do I got to go back there for? And I thought, on Harrison Ford's credit, it was played well. I felt it in that moment where he's like, there's nothing for me there. I'm just a sad old man. Let me stay here. It'll be fine. But she's not having it. She knows what's best for him. This isn't the way your story's supposed to end. Although, it could have been a fitting ending. Too, for Indiana Jones.
He's gonna fuck up the timeline.
Yeah.
They crashed a plane.
I know.
That's
plane's
still there.
Found.
Yeah.
And that's not going to make a lot of sense to people.
No. That part is just very messy. They should have come back to, like, flying cars and shit is what should have happened.
That's true. But that's when Indy explains to the audience that the dial was never a time travel device and, like, you can control it. It's like Archimedes needed help for the upcoming war, and he created a device that would bring help to him. So that was the only thing he could have ever used it for. That was his take on it. But I don't know if they helped, because they kind of just went home afterwards and were probably like, see ya, Archimedes. Because Helena knocks Indy out. She punches him.
Yeah.
And then they apparently load his old ass body onto the plane and fly home, and then fly to New York without him waking up once.
Yep.
That's what the ending tells you. But obviously he woke up somewhere and then had to go through customs, and then was just pissed off about the whole thing on the way home from Europe to America, probably just muttering about it. And then he gets home, and then he goes to sleep, and when he wakes up one day, they make it seem like it was the next day.
That next day, the police show up shortly after because they want to know where the Nazi scientist they have is, where the dead CIA agents are, what happened to the two murdered people in his office.
That too.
Like, he went immediately to jail and died in
Wasn't this
chains.
all explained in some fashion, though? The dead people, at least. That was taken care of in some fashion. They couldn't have just left that completely open.
They might have had it on the radio, I forget.
I think they had some sort of explanation quickly, but I don't recall what it is.
Marion comes back.
This is probably one of the better scenes in the movie, I think. Just because it's a little...
it was good.
It's the two of them, and they have a heart-to-heart.
She's like, are you back? Are you back, Indy? Because I can't stand it when you're not here.
So they seem to reconcile.
Yeah. And then they fuck. We know they fuck because, like, what does he do? Does he
probably do?
His hat's outside.
Yeah, it's like drying or something.
And he grabs it. And did he take it out or did he put it in?
He grabbed it outside and brought it in.
Yeah, because he was going to fuck her with the hat on.
I guess so. She's like, don't even touch me unless you put on that hat.
God damn it, Marion. This is why our marriage fell apart. You like the idea of me more than the actual May. Yeah.
This is like a Sean Connery impression.
I don't know. Old Harrison Ford is a lot like young Sean Connery, okay?
Nah, he's just really gruff.
Gravel.
And that's Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Give me back my son.
So what would we say? If there was no Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and this came out instead, how would you feel about this now being the ending of Indiana Jones?
I don't even need the asterisk. I think it's fine.
Yeah. But I say that like it's a fine sequel to it, but it wasn't needed. However, it was needed in that Kingdom was not, it didn't feel like a good ending for him.
No.
Like, so this was needed to at least make the last thing not as bad.
Yes. Kingdom was a better Indiana Jones movie?
You think so?
Neither of them are amazing. Like, this is just, it's not about having his goddaughter having her own short round and then having Sala appear, having Marion show up at the end. Like, those are boxes you check off. The 3 original Indiana Jones movies are good because they were just fun, silly nonsense that weren't trying to check the boxes outside of, we need to be bigger than last time.
Well, they're good because Harrison Ford is a charismatic lead actor, and you'd like to see him play that role. So then when Kingdom comes around, he's not who he used to be, but we thought we wanted to see more of Indiana Jones, but we maybe didn't really need to. And now, since that one wasn't that great, they had to make another one to end it.
This is a good example of, you need to know when to be done.
It's really, when your lead actor isn't really who he was anymore, then you really don't need that movie anymore.
When your lead actor is an octogenarian, then maybe you don't need him as the lead in the movie anymore.
I mean, and I'm just talking about Kingdom. 2009 Harrison Ford is just not Indiana Jones anymore, so you don't really need it. The same way you don't need to see the old fuckers as Ghostbusters. They're not who they used to be, so you don't really need to see them like that anymore.
Yeah.
The time for a sequel to any of these movies we grew up was the 90s. If you push it past the 90s, you're just asking for diminishing returns. That's what I think. If they had made a Ghostbusters 3 in like 98, then I'd think it was awesome. If they had made another Indiana Jones in like 99, like 10 years later, then that'd be cool.
This actually is kind of skirting the line of a legacy sequel. What do they do with the legacy sequel? They take the old, mesh it with the new, and leave the door open for the new to do a thing. I don't know about you, but I don't think anybody's like, oh, I can't wait to see Helena Shaw again.
No, and nobody felt that way about Shia LaBeouf either.
Yeah.
It was just, we loved Indiana Jones, so that was why they made more movies. But I understand Star Wars and bringing all them back because it's an ensemble film. It's not just Han Solo. It's not just Luke Skywalker. Like, there's ways to take that story further with other people. That's fine. I get that. They could have done it better.
Yeah. That is about it.
Another fine installment where we talk about a fine movie.
Yeah.
That's perfectly fine.
All right. We should do an episode where we make a list separately from each other of the 10 best sequels of all time and then argue about them for 45 minutes.
That's what we've been doing basically for 60 episodes. I also want to hear your list for the, in order, what your favorite Tim Burton movies are.
See, I've been thinking so much. I haven't seen them all. That's the hardest part for me.
Well, just the ones have you seen and order them. That's all.
All that for another time and another place. This was Aaron and Justin Talk Sequels. Thank you so much for listening. And we got more to come. We won't quit on you as long as you don't quit on us.
Don't quit on me, man.
Don't quit on me.